Multiple devices එකවර connect කළ හැකි. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. Multiple devices එකවර connect කළ හැකි. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Your headlines tonight. Soaring prices. Sri Lanka's inflation hits highest level recorded since 1954 as June headline inflation jumps over 54%. Continued assistance. As Sri Lanka's fuel crisis worsens, the US, UK and Oman envoys reassure support to the country. Aggravation. Lawyers take to the streets in anti-government protests demanding change. Stay. Investment promotion takes centre stage for new minister. Foreign investors introduced a long-term residence visa program. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Friday the 1st of July 2022.
නව ලයිෆ් බොයි කොහොම ස්වභාවික කොහොම සාරයෙන් සමග හානිකර පැරබන් රහිතයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A warm welcome to AdaDerana English News, and I'm Indifari Amwat. With no end in sight to the fuel crisis in the country, the public continues to be severely affected over the lack of public transport after 22 train services were cancelled today as staff at the railway station did not report to work. With bus capacity also running at just 10%, people continue to be severely inconvenienced in Sri Lanka when travelling to their places of work, having to wait long hours to get on board crowded buses and at times take risky rides.
Following the announcement by Lanka IOC to distribute fuel today across all its refilling stations, many people had decided to park their vehicles in queue outside refilling stations. Nevertheless, the general public was able to meet their fuel requirements through IOC filling stations, although subject to a fuel cap. Accordingly, motorcycles are able to pump fuel up to 1,500 rupees, three-wheelers 2,500 rupees, and cars up to 7,000 rupees. In the meantime, with Friday announced to be the day dedicated for distribution of fuel for health sector officials, many hospital staff were seen in queues since last night. Despite the prioritization, many refilling stations had not received fuel by this afternoon to meet the requirements of the health personnel. Tensions were once again high at some refilling stations as people waiting in queues had protested against allowing hospital staff priority access to fuel supply. In Madurai, however, there was public protest against the issuance of tokens for health personnel. In other developments, despite the prioritization for essential services, many filling stations have not received fuel for days. With this being the case, limited public transport has affected the means of transportation of the people. Many people continue to wait for long hours at bus halts and at train stations, expecting to get to their places of work as bus capacity has been reduced to 10%. More often than not, given the fuel crisis, many people are seen travelling at high risk. 22 train services were also cancelled today after staff at railway stations were unable to report to work due to the fuel shortage. In the meantime, Ambassador of Oman Ahmad Ali Said Al-Rashid reassured President Gotabaya Rajapaksa that he will support the strengthening of bilateral relations between the two countries in the areas of fuel, gas, energy, employment and other investment projects. This was conveyed by the Omani ambassador who called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to mark the end of his tenure in Colombo. Meanwhile, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara met with British High Commissioner Sarah Holton today and held discussions on the energy crisis. Discussions were also carried out pertaining to renewable energy, the No Coal Pact, plans for steady fuel supply for tourism and other sectors, and assistance from the UK for reforms for power and energy.
The Ceylon Electricity Board announced today that there could be delays in restoring emergency breakdown due to the ongoing fuel crisis. In a media release, CEB's acting general manager DCR Abesekara explained that they are compelled to deploy field service vehicles to attend to electricity breakdown complaints on priority basis. Although the availability of limited resources at present is beyond its control, the CEB noted that it is committed to minimizing the inconvenience caused to consumers. Now, lawyers in Colombo, Galle and Mathura staged protests today against the government, calling for the current Ranil Gotabaya regime to step down. In Colombo, under the theme "Chase the Oppressive Government," the protest was foiled from being held at the Presidential Secretariat after police set up barricades along the Lotus Road.
The series of protests organized by the Jatika Janamala Vegya under the theme "Chase the Oppressive Government" was carried out at multiple areas in the country yesterday. In the meantime, a protest was also staged by a group of lawyers today in front of the Halsdorf court. The lawyers were carrying out the protest under the theme "Chase out the Oppressive Government."
නීතිඥවරු විදියට විතරක් නෙමෙයි පුරවැසි විදියට මේ රටේ අපිට ලොකු වගකීමක් තියෙනවා මේ වෙලාවේ මේ තියෙන රනිල් ගෝඨා ආණ්ඩුව පළව හරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් මොකද අද මේ අපි කරන්නේ අපි විඳින්නේ අපි තෝරගත්ත දෙයක් නෙවෙයි කොහොම අපිට බලෙන් දීපු දේවල්. ඉතින් තවදුරටත් මේක අපිට දරා ගන්න බෑ. මේක දරාගෙන ඉන්නවා නම් මම හිතනවා අපි මේ රටේ පුරවැසි විදියට තාමත් ලැජ්ජා වෙන්න ඕනේ.
The protesters then proceeded to the Presidential Secretariat. As the protesters proceeded to make their way to the Presidential Secretariat, police personnel set up barricades along the Lotus Road in Colombo and prevented them from moving forward. In the meantime, a group of lawyers in Mathura and Galle also staged anti-government protests today.
Now, the US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, assured President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today that the United States will assist Sri Lanka in finding a solution to the economic crisis. The US Ambassador made these remarks after calling on the head of state at his residence in Colombo today. Ambassador Chung told the President that she understood the current situation in Sri Lanka and is confident that a quick recovery will take place. Meanwhile, Ambassador Chung also met with the Minister of Environment Nazir Ahmed today. Taken to Twitter, the US envoy said that discussions were carried out on how the United States' $8 million climate adaptation partnership with the NGOs and the public and private sector is strengthening climate resilience in Sri Lanka's agriculture, fisheries and tourism industries. Now, as for Sri Lanka's LPG situation, a necessity that consumers rely on, Sri Lankans yesterday heard of good news that LPG supplies for 4 months has been secured. To discuss all this, we've invited to join us virtually the new chairman of Litro Gas Lanka Limited, Mudita Piris. A very warm welcome to you. The new chairman, you've taken office recently and we heard of plans and a deal secured for 4 months of LPG supplies, of which the first 2 shipments are arriving in the country. Tell us how this plan worked out.
Okay, thank you, Derana, for the opportunity. Now, we have arranged confirmed shipment coming on the 6th afternoon, where we are expecting to start the delivery, rather the distributing the cylinders by 7th afternoon or 7th evening. And then we have another shipment coming on the 10th afternoon, which will come with another 3,700. The first one also with 3,700 metric tons. And then 15th, we'll have another 3,200 confirmed shipment. And again, 19th or rather 20th morning, we will have another shipment for another 3,700. And also by 20th, the Oman Gas, the current supplier, who we had the confirmed agreement with, they're supposed to bring down a bigger vessel, bigger floater from Oman to Maldivian waters. Right. And they will be parked there, and there'll be the 2 ships will be allocated to get cargo from Maldives and to Colombo, Kerala, PTA. So with all this, after 20th, we'll be getting every 2 days, sometimes every other day, we will be getting shipments up to 31st. And the plan is to complete with 33,000 odd metric tons for the month of July, which will sufficient enough to end the long queues. And yes, please. Yes.
So this 33,000 of the 100,000 metric tons that have been has been arranged for the next 4 months, starting July, you say is sufficient to sort out our the crisis situation, the dearth in supply over the next 4 months. Is that?
Yeah, I'm very confident that we should be able to get rid of all the queues by end of the month, or maximum it will take up to about 2nd, 3rd of August. We should be able to get rid of all the queues. And also this 90,000, 100,000 metric tons, we have a confirmed agreement with the supply Oman Gas, which was supported by the cabinet decision, recent cabinet decision. Actually, it is funded by 70 million, up to 70 million funded by World Bank, which agreement we signed yesterday afternoon, and 20 million, up to 20 million funded by Litrogas on its own funds.
Right.
Out of 20 million, we have already paid to the supplier $10 million. And also we have paid 25% each for the first 3 shipments also. So it's all ready, and we have confirmed all the logistics arrangements and the upcoming shipments. So we are very confident that we will be able to address this gas-related shortage issues, very confident.
That's a lot of optimism and confidence to the market. At the same time, how will Litrogas, Sri Lanka's main supplier of domestic gas, the state-run supplier, supplying to holding a major share, a majority share of the market, how will you manage the foreign currency crisis, the dearth in foreign exchange, to compensate for future supplies of LPG cylinders?
Actually, it was a task to find sufficient dollars since due to the dollar shortage in the country. But I had all the support from the finance ministry, I would say, and also from the Prime Minister's office and the coordinator, and also from the President's office itself. I had all the support, and also from the Exporters Association we have spoken, and they have given us their support also. With all this help, we managed to collect enough dollars for our next 4 months shipments with the World Bank funds, of course.
And as the new chairman for Litrogas Lanka Limited, what in your view would be the time frame in solving this crisis, especially when we talk about the LP gas crisis and the shortage? You've spoken about the 4 months arrangement in place, and you say the queues could be eased in the weeks to come. But at the same time, we're
end
talking
of the
about
month. Yeah.
end of the month. And what,
Yeah.
in your view, is your observation and overview for the market?
Okay, now we have a confirmed agreement with the current supplier for 4 months. And also there's a recent cabinet decision giving us instruction to float a new tender for the next 12 months, which will start from end of October or the 1st of November to 23rd November. So we'll be floating that tender also. It will be published on papers like a week after next also. So that will cover for the 12 months from October to November to 23rd November. So with this 4 months, there'll be 16 months that the new agreement will cover all 16 months with the current agreement.
Thank you very much for your time here on AdaDerana 24 English News, joining us virtually to give the consumers much confidence of what we are expecting and what we can look forward to in the next few weeks. We had with us the chairman of Litro Gas Lanka Limited, Muthu Piris, joining us virtually. We'll take a short break here on AdaDerana English.
Big 3.
The Board of Investment has launched a 5-year long-term resident visa for foreigners. The Minister of Investment Promotion, Dhammika Pereira, handed over these 5-year working visas to foreign investors today. The move was implemented in order to encourage foreign investors during their stay in the country, as they were previously required to renew their work visa every year.
Foreign nationals holding senior positions in companies registered under the Board of Investment in Sri Lanka were handed over a 5-year working visa by the Minister of Investment Promotion, Dhammika Pereira, today.
මේ වගේ වෙලාවක අපි ලංකාවේ ඉන්න පිටරටින් ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්න අයිති අය ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ කම්පනීස් වල ඩිරෙක්ටර්ස් ඒ වගේ ලොකු අයට අපි වෙනදා ඇත්තටම මෙහි ප්‍රොසීඩර් එක තිබුණේ හැම අවුරුද්දකටම සැරයක් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ වීසා එක අලුතෙන් ගන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් අපි අද කරේ ඒ වීසා එක අවුරුදු 5කට එකපාර දුන්නා. ඒ එක්කම අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වුණා ඒගොල්ලන් අපි ගෙනල්ලා අපි මේ වගේ පොසිටිව් හිතනවා කියලා හිතුවාම තමයි ඉන්වෙස්ටර් කෙනෙක් වුණොත් ඊළඟට ඇඩිෂනල් තව ඉන්වෙස්ට්මන්ට්ස් මේ ඔක්කොම දානවා නම් රජයක් හැටියට අපි අලුතෙන් හිතනවා කියලා පෙන්වන්න ඕනේ.
The chief prelates of the 4 Buddhist chapters have written to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, stressing on 10 points, including the creation of economic stability and the provision of relief to the people of Sri Lanka. In their statement, the chief prelates say the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution should be passed in Parliament without delay. They also stress that the President should take and expedite measures to convince political party leadership to appoint an honest all-party government again. The tenure of the all-party government should be limited to 6 months. The chief prelates emphasized in their statement, adding that the tenure should be extended to 12 or 18 months only if it succeeds in stabilizing the economy and minimizing the issues faced by the people. The cabinet of ministers of this all-party government should be limited to 15, and any politician convicted of corruption allegations should not be made part of it. The letter read further. The chief prelates also called for proper coordination with international institutions and friendly nations for the securing of loan assistance and implementation of a proper mechanism to manage these funds. Sri Lanka's inflation skyrocketed to 54.6% in June, the highest expansion in consumer prices since 1954. The Statistics Office data showed that inflation rose by a further 15.5% last month compared to 39.1% in May.
Sri Lanka's headline inflation, measured by the year-on-year change in the Colombo Consumer Price Index, soared to a 54.6% in June, from 39.1% in May this year. According to the Department of Census and Statistics, the year-on-year increase in inflation was driven by monthly increases in both food and non-food categories. Accordingly, Food inflation increased to 80.1% in June from 57.4% in May, while non-food inflation increased to 42.4% in June from 30.6% in May. The monthly change of CCPI was recorded at 12.8% in June. The month-on-month change was contributed by the price increases observed in items of food and non-food categories by 6.81% and 5.99% respectively. Within the food category, prices of fresh fish, vegetables, bread, rice, and milk powder increased substantially during the month. Further, prices of items in the non-food category recorded increases mainly due to price increases observed in the transportation sector, restaurants and hotels, education, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuel subcategories. Meanwhile, annual average inflation rose to 18.4% in June from 14.2% in May.
Following a slump in the all-share price index of 766 points or 9.4% last month, relatively active retail participation was observed during today's market session at the start of the new month. Investors hunted down heavyweights after margin pressure eased as the new month commenced. Although inflation for the month of June was recorded at 54.6% year-on-year, solid upward momentum was seen over the day, with the benchmark closing at 7,457. This was a gain of 115 points. Turnover in the meantime hit a fresh record of 1.4 billion rupees after 3 weeks, up 50% compared to the recent weekly average. Today's turnover was driven by active retail participation, led by energy sectors, LIOC, and transportation sectors, Expo. Energy and transportation sectors accounted for a joint contribution of 67% to market turnover. Foreign investors, however, ended as net sellers, breaking the 4-day streak of net buying. Low foreign participation was also witnessed during today's market session. Now, the United States stock markets fell sharply, experiencing its worst first half-a-year drop amidst the country's ongoing inflation. As the inflation and interest rates continue to peak, analysts warn of a recession to the world's biggest economy. New U.S. data for May showed little immediate relief from the record pace of inflation, pushing the Federal Reserve towards another oversized interest rate increase next month. But it did add to a developing sense that the worst may be over.
US stocks opened lower today as markets kicked off the second half of the year in the negative. The Dow Jones dropped 54 points to 30,720, while the S&P 500 shed 4 points to 3,781. The Nasdaq Composite dropped 20 points to 11,006. These stocks just wrapped up the worst first half in more than 50 years, when all three major indices finished the month and the second quarter in negative territory. The S&P index marked a 20.6% drop in the last 6 months, accounting for its largest fall since 1970. The US Federal Reserve is reported to raise interest rates aggressively as they are experiencing the worst inflation in decades. According to analysts, the hopes of slowing down the US economic growth to curb inflation have posed an ongoing burden on market sentiment in the past few months, also triggering concerns over a possible recession. US inflation, as measured by the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, was 6.3% on an annualized basis in May, the same as in April, and still more than triple the US Central Bank's formal 2% target, far from the clear evidence of falling inflation that Fed officials say they need before backing off their rate hike plans.
And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9, your AdaDerana English news service. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.